Chapter 27. Nobody had anything to say after that one, not even Susan Brooks. I felt tired. There didn't seem to be a great deal left to say. Most of them were looking outside again, but there wasn't anything to see that hadn't been there an hour before. Actually less, because all of the pedestrians had been shooed away. I decided Sandra's sex story had been better. There had been an orgasm in hers. Ted Jones was staring at me with his usual burning intensity. I thought, however, that revulsion had given way entirely to hate, and that was mildly satisfying. Sandra Cross was off in her own world. Pat Fitzgerald was carefully folding a cheap piece of study hall math paper into an aerodynamically unsound aircraft. Suddenly, Irma Bates said defiantly, "I have to go to the bathroom." I sighed. It sounded a great deal like the way I remembered Dana Collette sigh at Scudic Point. "Go, then." She looked at me unbelievingly. Ted blinked. Don Lordi snickered. "You'd shoot me." I looked at her. "Do you need to go to the crapper or not?" "I can hold it," she said sulkily. I blew out my cheeks the way my father does when he's put out. "Well, either go or stop wiggling around in your seat. We don't need a puddle underneath your desk." Corky went ha-ha at that. Sarah passed her and looked shocked. As if to spite me, Irma got up and walked with flat-footed vigor toward the door. I had gained at least 1 point. Ted was staring at her instead of me. Once there, she paused uncertainly, hand over the knob. She looked like someone who has just gotten an electric shock while adjusting the TV rabbit ears and is wondering whether or not to try again. "You won't shoot me?" "Are you going to the bathroom or not?" I asked. I wasn't sure if I was going to shoot her. I was still disturbed by, jealous of, the fact that Sandra's story seemed to have so much more power than my own. In some undefined way, they had gained the upper hand. I had the crazy feeling that instead of my holding them, it was the other way around. Except for Ted, of course. We were all holding Ted. Maybe I was going to shoot her. I certainly didn't have anything to lose. Maybe it would even help. Maybe I could get rid of the crazy feeling that I had waked up in the middle of a new dream. She opened the door and went out. I never raised the gun off the blotter. The door closed. We could hear her feet moving off down the hall, not picking up tempo, not breaking into a run. They were all watching the door as if something completely unbelievable had poked its head through, winked, and then withdrawn. For myself, I had a strange feeling of relief, a feeling so tenuous that I could never explain it. The footfalls died out. Silence. I waited for someone else to ask to go to the bathroom. I waited to see Irma Bates dash crazily out of the front doors and right onto the front pages of 100 newspapers. It didn't happen. Pat Fitzgerald rattled the wings of his plane. It was a loud sound. "Throw that goddamn thing away," Billy Sawyer said irritably. "You can't make a paper plane out of study hall paper." Pat made no move to throw the goddamn thing away. Billy didn't say anything else. New footfalls coming toward us. I lifted up the pistol and pointed it toward the door. Ted was grinning at me, but I don't think he knew it. I looked at his face, at the flat, conventionally good-looking planes of his cheeks, at the forehead, barricading all those memories of summer country club days, dances, cars, Sandy's breasts, calmness, ideals of rightness. And suddenly I knew what the last order of business was. Perhaps it had been the only order of business all along. And more importantly, I knew that his eye was the eye of a hawk and his hand was stone. He could have been my own father, but that didn't matter. He and Ted were both remote and Olympian, gods. But my arms were too tired to pull down temples. I was never cut out to be Samson. His eyes were so clear and so straight, so frighteningly purposeful. They were politicians' eyes. 5 minutes before, the sound of the footfalls wouldn't have been bad, you see. 5 minutes before, I could have welcomed them, put the gun down on the desk blotter, and gone to meet them, perhaps with a fearful backward glance at the people I was leaving behind me. But now it was the steps themselves that frightened me. I was afraid Philbrick had decided to take me up on my offer, that he had come to shut off the main line and leave our business unfinished. Ted Jones grinned hungrily. The rest of us waited, watching the door. Pat's fingers had frozen on his paper plane. Dick Keene's mouth hung open, and in that moment I could see, for the first time, the family resemblance between him and his brother Flapper, a borderline IQ case who had graduated after 6 long years in Placerville. Flapper was now doing postgraduate work at Thomaston State Prison, doing doctoral work in laundry maintenance and advanced spoon sharpening. An unformed shadow rose up on the glass, the way it does when the surface is pebbly and opaque. I lifted the pistol to high port and got ready. I could see the class out of the corner of my right eye, watching with absorbed fascination, the way you watch the last reel of a James Bond movie when the body count really soars. A clenched sound, sort of a whimper, came out of my throat. The door opened, and Irma Bates came back in. She looked around peevishly, not happy to find everyone staring at her. George Yannick began to giggle and said, "Guess who's coming to dinner?" It didn't make anyone else laugh. It was George's own private yuck. The rest of us just went on staring at Irma. "What are you looking at me for?" she asked crossly, holding the knob. "People do go to the bathroom, didn't you know that?" She shut the door, went to her seat, and sat down primly. It was almost noon.